Many of our audience are familiar with Eastern teachings. And one of the traditional teachings that you hear all the time, which is traditional Vedanta, is a Sanskrit term. And the term goes Nama Rupa, Sat Chit Ananda. Now, as you will very quickly remind me, we're talking about a concept. This happens to be a concept which is completely and absolutely congruent with what we're talking about. And since I know lots of people that have been spouting that like a chant for 20 years, it might be nice to unfold in light of what you just said, how that Sanskrit term actually represents exactly what you were just talking about.
Yes, the ancient Indian sages had this extraordinary skill of going or being, knowing themselves as the reality of experience, and then formulating it in these exquisite, as it were, equations, these short, pithy, economical, potent phrases in which they try to give voice, form to the experience that they're try to give form to their experience. And this formulation, Nama Rupa Sat Chit Ananda, is one of these beautiful, it's a pure work of art. It comes from love, from understanding, and puts in this form the essence of that. So let's explore it, staying always close, because what they were describing when they said Nama Rupa Sat Chit Ananda, they're describing experience. This is all we know of experience. So they were describing this current experience. That is the place to explore it. So we're not going to go off into abstract philosophical thinking. We're going to stay very, very close to our experience, which means this experience. So we start with Nama. It means name. That part of experience, of the current experience, which is supplied, as it were, by thinking, by naming. It is the thought aspect. So there is a perception, whatever that perception is, and the mind then labels it. And in doing so, the perception itself is, we could call it at this stage one experience. We could even call it at this stage one object, called sensing, perceiving. The mind then comes in and abstracts from this seamless experience. It abstracts separate objects and entities. It says table, chair, person, wall, door, window, hill, house, sky. And as it were, overlays upon our experience an abstract conception, an abstract belief in a multiplicity and diversity of things. So this is, as it were, the top layer of experience. If we were to ask anyone, not necessarily spiritually inclined, but just anyone, what are we experiencing here? Most of us would say tables, chairs, walls. So this is but that is simply the label that the mind has added to the experience. The table, the perception, this perception itself doesn't come with any label attached to it. This perception doesn't know that it is a table. A chair doesn't know that it is a chair. In fact, even to abstract a chair from the totality is already an act of thinking. So this belief, this naming, is so intimately interwoven in the way we have been conditioned to think and feel, so as to make it seem that it actually happens. We actually experience a multiplicity and diversity of objects. So we peel away, as it were, this first layer of superimposition. And then we are now just left with raw sensing perceiving. So we now do the same process again. We go deeply into the experience of the perception. And we did this a little bit before, so we don't need to go into it so deeply now, but we arrived from our own experience at the understanding that the perception, in this case, let's just talk about visual perception, on the understanding that what's being said
to be extrapolated to any sense
includes the multi-dimensional object of sound, sight, taste. So let's keep it simple and just talk about perception. That we have no experience of a perception outside of perceiving. Now, is the chair, the wall, the table, the hill perceiving itself?
Of course not.
No. Perceiving is, we could say, an activity of mind. Perceiving takes place, let's say, in the mind, or rather it is the mind. So, in order to find out what this experience really is, we know now that it's not a multiplicity and diversity of objects because we've taken off the naming. Mm-hmm. We've seen that naming is not inherent. Multiplicity and diversity is not inherent in experience. Now, we see, okay, in order to find out what this is, independent of perceiving, independent of the mind, let's remove the mind from this perception. Let's remove perceiving. We've already removed thinking, we're now taking off another layer. Mm-hmm. Rupa, form. Nama, thinking, naming. Rupa, we're going to remove that part of the experience that is, as it were, supplied by the perceiving apparatus. We remove the perceiving element.
We're subtracting the perceiving element.
So we're trying to find out what this experience really is, independent of what mind thinks and perceives it to be. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what is left when we remove thinking and perceiving from the current experience? What is left?